Is really irritating. Okay, got disconnected. Then I had to find with OBS. We'll have to figure out some other way. OBS just keeps crashing. Find some other more reliable software or something else. Today I'll talk to you, Aditya. I'll take upon your offer and find more reliable, better. Anyway, so the omission that I was talking to you about, there are only three who have joined it back. Uh, join back in. So the major omission that I was talking about in 24, and that is one of, as I said, I'll leave you with more questions than answers, but you will know the answers yourself. One of the major incident that happened in the freedom struggle of India in 1919, 1919 में क्या मेजर इंसिडेंट हुआ था? Yes, Aditya, that's a very good point that the Britishers were indifferent, not on personal reasons, but on professional reasons. Right? It's not that they hated the Indians, but they had a pretty stiff outlook. खिलाफत, नॉन कोऑपरेशन एजिटेशन, जलियांवाला बाग हुआ, जिसकी वजह से रविंद्रनाथ टैगोर ने अपनी नाइटहुड वापस कर दी. When did Jallianwala happen? Jallianwala Bagh. Hmm. Who's gonna give me the year? This question, this 40 marker, becomes a major conceptual question. This has come in many forms over the years, and this, for me, is the basis of UPSC's interest in this text. This is what UPSC wants us to primarily understand: his passage to India and Englishman's view of the Indian scenario. Jallianwala Bagh happened in what year? किसी को नहीं पता ये? बताया नहीं किसी ने जलियांवाला बाग. What are you guys doing? Sleeping? 1919, not early 1900s, Aditya. 1919. So such a major event that it was a major event by all accounts. Probably there is no other. I can't recall. If you can recall, you can tell me. There has been throughout the history of British in India, throughout their colonial history in India, this was probably the single largest incident where the British Army, British officers opened fire on unarmed civilians protesting peacefully. This never happened, right? And this happened in 1919, and E.M. Forster was in India in 1920. And this does not even, there is not even a passing mention, nothing. How do you look at that? Because it is definitely deliberate. This omission is definitely an intended omission. E.M. Forster is telling you something by not telling you this, right? It's like, and it's an amazing tactic. When I first read it for many years, I felt really cross with E.M. Forster for a lot of things. For the way he's looking at India, for the way he's describing it in very stereotypical ways. But as I understood him more and more, first of all, you have to understand that he was writing in the 1924 England, which was still a very powerful British Empire. 1920s, very powerful. The decline will start after 1930s, 40s, but at this time, very powerful. The Queen is the most powerful person in the world, and he was writing there. He was living in London. He was writing within those circumstances, right? So he was writing from within the British Empire, not outside of it. So how much and what can you do from within the British Empire and still end up making this text a highly critical text of the British Empire? How do you do that magic? आप You're writing from within that political and ideological setup, right in the middle of it, and you create a text. Nobody understands, nobody realizes that he's actually being critical of us. It takes people, even critics, 40, 50, 60, 70 years to figure out that this text is an anti-colonial text. It builds upon the narrative of anti-colonialism. It became a powerful weapon. There is a question. Niraj C. Chaudhary, the famous critic of Indian origin, he said that Passage to India became a powerful weapon in the hands of anti-colonialists. How he ended up doing that? Writing from within the empire. He had to be really, really smart. He had to be really, really careful. He had to be really, really being good, great artist. A lot of symbols, metaphors, right? And he had to avoid everything and anything that could even passingly align him with the Indians. You understand that? This should change your entire perspective about this text. You have to understand his position, where he's coming from, where he was. Does it make sense? Okay, those who are in and around Delhi or Ghaziabad, Noida, Gurgaon, I am gonna take once a week physical one-to-one, uh, not classes but sessions. You can come and meet and we can have a discussion for a couple of hours. Because I'm mentoring some main student who are writing for 2022. They'll be coming and meeting me once or twice a week. If anyone who's around Delhi who's preparing seriously, you're welcome to come for that session. Okay, so now let's come back to this primary question. Is Passage to India an Englishman's view of the Indian scenario? This question is the simplicity of this question is just amazing. It is asking a lot of things. First of all, is a passage to India an Englishman's view? What do you mean by an Englishman's view? Do they mean typical, stereotypical, limited, myopic view of an Englishman? Of the and then they ask you of the Indian scenario, not India. They could have asked you, is passage to India an Englishman's view of India? No, of the Indian scenario. What scenario are they talking about? What scenario? Englishman's view. What do they mean by an Englishman's view? So you have to establish right in the beginning that an Englishman's view, colonial view, or a Western view. You have to talk about Orientalism, the superior inferior dichotomy. You have to establish what do you understand by an Englishman's view, because E.M. Forster is also an Englishman, but his view is very different. But having said that, he's a liberal, he's a brilliant guy, wonderful artist, and he understands what wrong was happening in India. Still, he has presented what Aditya just said. He has presented an Englishman's view, so that people who were reading this book at that time superficially felt that it is a typical, stereotypical Englishman's view, but it is not. Superficially, that's how the book is structured and written, that it is an Englishman's view, an English take on the Indian scenario. But when you unravel the layers, you realize it is not just any Englishman's view. It is a highly liberal, secular, thinking, hmm, empathizing, and a great artist's view. We'll come to that. Let's now quickly check out some areas. Characters and structure. So this text is driven by some major characters and the way the book has been structured. We, I look at four primary characters as the four corners. We have two primary Indian characters, Dr. Aziz and Professor Godbole, and two sides of British characters. So I'm not taking the other side. One side is the stereotypical colonial masters, and the other side is the so-called liberals. So the Indian side, we have a Muslim, a fundamentalist Muslim, and an orthodox Hindu, Brahmin, Professor Godbole, Dr. Aziz. On the British side, The stereotypical colonial side, we have Ronnie, we have Dr. Calendar, all those characters. They can be lumped together in that colonial master's characterization. In the liberal side, we have Cyril Fielding, the school principal, Adela Quested, and Mrs. Moore. What I find really interesting is the character of Cyril Fielding. Why? Because he comes across as the most liberal, sympathetic, good, good human, good human character. But what is he here for? What is he doing in India? He's a school principal. So basically, what is he doing? What's his job? His job is to civilize the Indians, isn't it? And isn't that one of the founding principles of colonialism? Civilize the natives. That's our duty. Ronnie ends up saying it that they need us to govern them. They need us to govern them. He talks to his mother, Ronnie. Cyril Fielding is actually doing it. He's civilizing the Indian and he becomes a moral torch. He's presented by Forster deliberately as far higher in terms of moral intelligence, emotional intelligence, social intelligence than Dr. Aziz. Dr. Aziz is a doctor, which is in terms of qualification and education, is far more educated than Cyril Fielding. Cyril Fielding is presented as on a higher ground in terms of moral intelligence, emotional intelligence, educational intelligence, because he has that higher ground being a Britisher, being a colonial master, a superior inferior mindset. So if you want to see the Orientalist theory working, that the West as superior, the East as inferior, then you just have to look at Dr. Aziz and Cyril Fielding dichotomy in this text, right? E.M. Forster very, very intelligently, very smartly creates a character who looks like there is always one good character in any colonial setup. So he creates that character. But in essence, that character is the true symbol of colonialism. Ronnie and everyone else, they are the officers. They've come here to do their jobs. Right? It's their job to govern. It's their job to maintain law and order. Right? So they are not necessarily evil. They are just executing their duties. They are the soldiers. They are the foot soldiers. The real colonizers, the real colonial masters are people like Cyril Fielding. Have you thought about this like this before? Because he comes across, he's written like a character who's most sympathetic and brilliant character. You fall in love. Even being an Indian, you fall in love with him. That's how E.M. Foster has created him. But he's Foster is doing something really, really tricky and brilliant with Cyril Fielding's character. You know why? Because it is Cyril Fielding who calls Dr. Aziz and India a muddle. Not Ronnie, not Major Calendar, nor Heaslop, not nobody else. They have a very limited view of Indians. They don't give much thought. That's right. The only real sensible character in the novel, and he is white. He is the one who calls Dr. Aziz and India a muddle. He calls him, it's not his fault, he is Oriental. It's this entire country. He's the one who compares the Western architecture and the Eastern architecture. He's the one. So E.M. Forster, what E.M. Forster is doing is E.M. Forster is E.M. Forster creates a character that looks the most sympathetic, down to earth, most intelligent, morally, ethically, emotionally more connected. That becomes believable. Both sides are, in strife with him. The Britishers feel that he just sympathizes with the Indians. Indians want to believe him. Dr. Aziz wants to believe him, but eventually realize that cannot be believed. So what Dr. Aziz decides by the end, and so we have a set of 3 4 questions that we'll discuss in the next class, where these 3 4 questions kind of sum up this entire text. One is Englishman's view of the Indian scenario, and another is the muddle, and another question is friendship between British and the Indians. Is the friendship between the Britishers and the Indians possible? That is one of the major themes. In chapter 2, Hamid Ali, Hamidullah, and Dr. Aziz, they are discussing, and this question pops up: can the friendship be be possible? Can we have friendship with the Britishers? And this question is explored. This theme is explored through the friendship of Dr. Aziz and Cyril Fielding, Dr. Aziz and Adela Questic, Dr. Aziz and Mrs. Moore. In the last chapter, the last page, we'll read some of that actually, and I'll also read chapter 1. Let me quickly go through some major ideas. So, that friendship between Dr. Aziz and Cyril Fielding starts off on a brilliant note. Cyril Fielding comes across as a great guy, very liberal, very secular, very understanding, being British. But he keeps on giving hints. Forster keeps giving hints about his, hard set colonial oriental superioristic mindset. Keeps giving him hints. And Dr. Aziz realizes this by the end. And that's where it is Aziz who rejects his friendship, not Cyril Fielding. That's a brilliant thing that Forster did. Right? It is him who rejects them, not the other way around. That's one of the things, one of the themes. Professor Godbole for Forster, Godbole brings a balance in terms of the religious demography of the text. But I think there is a deeper reason why Godbole is there. Why Forster picked Dr. Aziz and Professor Godbole, two very highly educated and intelligent people with very eccentric personalities, unique. So you must have realized that even though there are only two Indian characters, major Indian characters, they are very unique. They are round characters, dynamic characters. E.M. Forster actually himself devised these terms in his text aspects of the novel: round characters and flat characters. Round characters undergo change during the course of the story of the text. Flat characters remain the same. Forster created these two round characters, Godbole and Dr. Aziz. All the British characters, all the British characters are flat, including Cyril Fielding. Isn't that wonderful? Yeah. So he created all the British characters as absolute stereotype, Oriental stereotype. And rest of the Indian characters, the minor characters, they are all also Oriental stereotype. He only focused on Godbole and Dr. Aziz, some aspects of Mrs. Moore and Adela Quested, and then some aspects of Cyril Fielding. Cyril Fielding is his major puppet. Cyril Fielding is his major device. Godbole comes as symbol of Hinduism, symbol of the mysticism of India, and symbol of everything that the Britishers of the West cannot understand about India. We also have the caves for that. Godbole comes across as that eccentric, ancient, you know, non-logical, non-rational, uh, rhetoric voice that the Britishers cannot simply understand. It remains indifferent, and he presents the philosophy of Advaita, of the unity of life, and he stays on that. Eventually, he helps Dr. Aziz settle in Mau, and he remains like that. He doesn't create any unnecessary ruckus or any scene. He remains on the fence. Then the structure, because this muddle question is really important. India is a muddle. The whole country is a place of division and disjunction. Who said this? Who said this? Whose comment is this? Hmm. किसने बोला था ये comment? I think this structure of mosque, caves, and temple plays very well with this idea of India is a muddle, which is which was at that time for the Britishers a major narrative regarding India. And it's such a big, huge landmass, and it is a place of division and disjunction in all possible interpretation of the word. That in terms of demography, in terms of geography, in terms of culture, in terms of religion, in terms of languages, in terms of cuisine, in terms of everything. It is a place of division and distinction. It is incredibly hard to make sense of this place. And isn't that such a strong argument against colonialism? That you're yourself accepting this, that this place is beyond our understanding. Then how do you claim to rule it and govern it? That's the core emotional argument of William Foster. Huh? It's like it's a stream delay today. It's like you're applying for a job, right? It's a high paying job, fantastic, great wages. And you discuss at the interview that the job is brilliant. Obviously, I'll take the money. I'm happy to take the money. But I can tell you, it's whole place is just divided and disjuncted. There's so much. There's no way we can understand the place, the workplace. It's simply we simply cannot understand it. It's divisive and disjunctive, and everything is wrong with it. Will you get that job? Forster is just creating this argument that when Britishers simply cannot understand India, how can they govern it? Because the colonial argument is just this. Colonial argument has always been that we are improving life of the natives. We are civilizing them. We are giving them religion. We are giving them law and order. We are giving them technology. We are giving them governance. We are increasing their, enhancing their overall life. That's the colonial argument. In the modern world, not talking about the 1800s and the 1900s. In the 20th century, that's the argument that we are there to civilize them. Foster is very smartly telling that your most liberal character, Cyril Fielding, completely believes it that India is a place of muddle. You know the little meaning of the word muddle and how the Britishers use the word muddle. Muddle is a state of confusion. So India puts you in a state of utter confusion. How can you rule the country when you are put into a state of confusion? So Foster is telling you that you agree to this, that this puts you in a state of utter confusion, and then everything you do in India as administrators and rulers is out of that state of confusion. That's why all hell breaks loose. You simply don't understand it, and that shows that's the metaphorical device of Adela Quested. Adela Quested represents everything that is wrong with the British rule. Coming to India, you're put in a state of confusion because you simply cannot understand and grasp. Everything is against your nature. The temperature, the food, the culture, everything is against you. So you're put into a state of confusion. Adela Quested was. And then out of that state of utter confusion, you do stupid things, make stupid decisions, like Adela Quested did with Dr. Aziz's accusation. By the time you come back to your senses, Adela Quested could. The best possible solution is that you go back to Britain, like Adela Quested did. Mrs. Moore wasn't so lucky. Mrs. Moore came to India, experienced that ancient muddle-headedness, the ancient confusion. Even though she was very, very open, she couldn't take it. She couldn't even make it back to England. Do you see the picture now? This is what E.M. Foster is trying to establish, and he successfully does. Does it make sense? Your chats are like reaching me 4 minutes delayed. I don't know. Okay, anyhow. Okay. Let's. I wanted to read some passages. Let's see if I can find the text online and we can read it from a text somewhere. No, the internet is not slow. I'm on a pretty high speed internet. I am on a wireless internet, 100 Mbps. Okay, this is the part I'd like to read. You can read in your own text because the font is really small. You can read it fine. Chapter 1, Part 1, Mosque. Except for the Maraba caves, and they're 20 miles off. Everyone said with the text, except for the Maraba caves, and they are 20 miles off. The city of Chandrapur presents nothing extraordinary. Edged rather than washed by the river Ganges, it sails for a couple of miles along the bank, scarcely distinguishable from the rubbish it deposits so freely. There are no bathing steps on the riverfront, as the Ganges happens not to be holy here. Indeed, there is no riverfront. Bazaars shut out the wide and shifting panorama of the stream. The streets are mean, the temples ineffective, and though a few fine houses exist, they are hidden away in gardens or down alleys whose filth deters all but the invited guest. Chandrapur was never large or beautiful. 200 years ago, it lay on the road between Upper India, then Imperial, and the sea, and the fine houses date from that period. The zest for decoration stopped in the 18th century. 18th century में stop का मतलब since the Mughals. So no decoration has happened ever since the Britishers have arrived. Okay. This line is really beautiful. The zest for decoration stopped in the 18th century, nor was it ever democratic. Even when it was done during the Mughal period, it was not democratic. There is no painting and scarcely any carving in the bazaar. The very wood seems made of mud, inhabitants of mud moving. So abased, so monotonous is everything that meets the eye that when the Ganges comes down, it might be expected to wash the existence back into the soil. Houses do fall, people are drowned and left rotting, but the general outline of the town persists, swelling here, shrinking there, like some low but indestructible form of life. When you read this paragraph as an Indian, you will be offended. You're supposed to be offended. But understand one thing very clearly. This book was not written for you. This book was not even published in India. Yeah? This was published in the Britain, in Europe. So of course this offends us, but the whole idea is not to offend us. The last line, like some low but indestructible form of life. That's how he's defining the Indians. Low but indestructible form of life. This entire paragraph is antithetical to the next one. What happens in the next one? Let's read a few lines, but you'll get the idea. Inland. Now he uses the word inland, which sounds very much like England. He could use any other word, but he uses the word inland. The prospect alters. There is an oval Maidan and a long sallow hospital. Houses belonging to Eurasians stand on high ground by the railway station beyond the railway. यहाँ पे it is a city of gardens. यहाँ पे even the Ganges becomes a noble river. It is a tropical pleasance washed by a noble river. In the previous paragraph, the Ganges stop becoming holy. It's not holy here. But in this, it becomes a noble river. Nobleman. Nobleman is a title used in England. So the river becomes noble once it is in the territory of the British. Right? So the first paragraph describes how the Indians live in the same city. Second paragraph describes within the same city. That's how the Britishers. He's just shown you the picture and absolute or as objective as possible. Of course, he's done his trickery. Now, who is responsible for the state of these people in paragraph 1? Who's responsible for that? Of course, the colonial masters. Because in the second paragraph, Forster is showing that it is possible to make the same city a city of gardens. See the point? See the trickery? You need to understand the tricks Forster is playing. He's under a lot of pressure writing in the British colonial times from within the British Empire. So when the Britishers read the first paragraph, and they must have read the first paragraph, they must have laughed. Ah, filthy, low life Indians. Low but indestructible life. Yeah, that's what they are. They are like the ants. Yeah, they must have clapped and made jokes. But Foster's work was done. Yeah. Now, the third paragraph. Last line of second paragraph is again phenomenal. It has nothing hideous in it, and the only view is beautiful. It shares nothing with the city except the overarching sky. We'll come to the metaphorical symbolism of sky. So, the only thing beautiful about this is the view. Hideous nahi hai, but it's just view beautiful. And it shares nothing with the city. Though paragraph, they don't share anything with each other except the overarching sky. Now, what is sky? Third paragraph. The sky too has its changes, but they are less marked than those of the vegetation and the river. Clouds map it up at times, but it is normally a dome of blending tints and the main tint blue. Now, why the hell is he talking about clouds and sky and blue tint and all that? By day, the blue will pale down into white. The blue will pale down into white, where it touches the white of the land. After sunset, it has a new circumference, orange, melting upwards into tenderest purple. But the core of blue persists, and so it is by night. Then the stars hang like lamps from the immense vault. The distance between the vault and them is as nothing to the distance behind them. And the farther distance go beyond color last freed itself from blue. What is blue? Is blue color of India, or is blue color of the British? Think about it. Next one. Sky settles everything, not only climates and seasons, but when the earth shall be beautiful. Sky settles everything, when the earth shall be beautiful. By herself she can do little, only feeble outbursts of flowers. But when the sky chooses, glory can rain into the Chandrapur bazaars, or a benediction pass from horizon to horizon. What is sky? Is sky a symbol for British Raj, an earth colony, India? So sky settles everything. Earth cannot do anything, right? By herself she can do little, the colony. Only feeble outbursts of flowers. British Raj is not the sun, British Raj is the sky, overarching sky, all over the earth, envelops the earth. If earth is the colony, enveloped by the British Raj. The sky can do this. Now, where is the power of the sky? The sky can do this because it is so strong and so enormous. Now, if you're not reading metaphorically, if you're only reading this text literally, कि ऐसे ही पढ़ते हैं, these lines make no sense. You must be wondering, what the hell is he talking about? Huh? The sky settles everything. The sky can do this because it is so strong. Who talks about sky as being so strong? You all know that. That's why you have to think, what is happening here? What does he actually mean? What's the figure of speech here? Sky can do this because it is so strong. The British Raj can do this because it is so strong and so enormous. Strength comes from the sun. What is sun? The strength of the British Raj comes from the sun. Infused in it daily, sighs from the prostrate earth. Strength comes from the sun, size comes from the earth. Who's the sun? Sun is the queen. Sun is the monarch. Yes. So strength comes from the monarchy, the kings and the queens. Size comes from obviously the territorial size from the colonies. The prostrate earth. Prostrate, completely surrendered. Ashtang pranam. No mountains infringe on the curve. We were talking about why he has not mentioned anything about the freedom struggle or the independence struggle or anything else. He's pointing at that here. No mountains infringe on the curve. League after league, earth lies flat. Heaves a little, flat again. This is where he is referring to the feeble outbursts of independence struggle. And trust me, when all the British accounts that I have read about the freedom struggle, genuine ones, proper ones, not the propaganda ones, genuine accounts. They've all just mentioned they were at best feeble outbursts, very feeble. This is what he's saying here. League after league, earth lies flat, heaves a little, flat again. Only in the south, where a group of fists and fingers are thrust up through the soil, is the endless expanse interrupted. These fists and fingers are the Malabar Hills, containing extraordinary. So the caves are the only extraordinary thing. There is nothing else extraordinary about the city of Chandrapur or India. Now, what is the significance of the caves? What are caves? All these questions that I'm asking you, you have to write them down and think about them. I'm not here to give you all the answers, but I'm definitely here to give you all the questions. So, have you gained any newer insight from chapter 1 rereading? Anything you picked up new? Anything that my talk has helped you? Okay, okay. Chapter 2 discusses a major question. They were discussing as to whether or no it is possible to be friends with an Englishman. Mahmoud Ali argues that it was not possible. Hamidullah also disagreed. Then one of them says that it's possible in England, but not here. I only contend that it is possible in England, replied Hamidullah. Aziz, it is impossible here, Aziz. The red-nosed boy has again insulted me in court. I do not name him. Okay, so this theme continues throughout, and eventually, right here, Dr. Aziz is not really absolutely sure of what to make of it, but towards the end, so this is the last page, last chapter. India a nation. What an apotheosis. Apotheosis. Last comer to the drab 19th century sisterhood. Waddling in it, waddling in at this hour of the world to take her seat. She whose only peer was the Holy Roman Empire. She shall rank with Guatemala and Belgium, perhaps, feeling mocked again. And Aziz, in an awful rage, danced this way and that, not knowing what to do, and cried, "Down with the English, anyhow." That's certain. Clear out, you fellows. Double quick, I say. We may hate one another, but we hate you the most. If I don't make you go, Ahmed will, Kareem will. If it's 5,500 years, we shall get rid of you. If it's yes, we shall drive every blasted Englishman into the sea, and then he rode against him furiously, and then he concluded, half kissing him, you and I shall be friends. Why can't we be friends now? Said the other. Now, notice that Forster is using the word other. He does not names Fielding here. He calls him the other. Those were um, idea of the other, Foucault's idea of the other, the master and slave Hegelian idea. Why can't we be friends now? Said the other, holding him affectionately. It's what I want, it's what you want. But the horses didn't want it. They swerved apart. Earth didn't want it, sending up rocks through which riders must pass single file. You remember when he first described the earth lies flat, leagues after leagues of flat surface. Now the earth is sending up rocks through which riders must pass single file. Temples, the tank, the jail, the palace, the birds, the carrion, the guest house that come into view as they issued from the gap and saw more beneath. They didn't want it. They said in their 100 voices, no, not yet. And the sky said, no, not there. Sky and earth both said it. Sky is the British Raj. Not there. Friendship is not possible. Between master and slave, a friendship is only possible when two people, the status quo is similar, they're on the same status. Friendship between master and slave is not possible. And this is another theme that Forster explores, that if you cannot be at the same level as the people trying to rule, it is always a master's, it is slavery, it is a form of slavery. Cannot happen. Does it make sense? I think I've given you far more too much stuff. So what I'm going to do in the next class is I will take 5 or 7 questions. Those 5 questions or 6 questions will encapsulate the entire, all the possible major areas of passage to India, and we'll keep send you this slide if you want in the Telegram group. I'll send you this slide. In fact, I'm going to put together all these slides in one website or something like that, a repository where I can post all these sequentially so that anyone can get them. And I'll post a link. I'll post a link in the description. Cool. So a lot of new ideas or not? Good guys. Your questions next class. Always bring in your questions to ask before we start. And after that, we'll be doing WH Auden. Those who've done WH Auden can skip that class. WH Auden. Some poems we do on Friday, some poems we do on Monday. We cover Auden in that phase. Okay, days are fixed Monday, Wednesday, Friday, unless some real emergency happens. Timing, I'm trying to get to 8:30. Get to 8:30 sooner or later, don't worry. Because I want to get it done first thing in the morning, then start my day. Thanks a lot for your patience. Thanks a lot for standing by. And turning up on time whenever I request. I wish you all the best. Questions, put them together. Any question is fine. Don't worry about asking a silly or stupid question. Anything and everything is okay. Make a list. Next time, as soon as you comment, post it in the comment section and I'll take the questions. Take care. Bye bye. Thank you very much.